Hello, Assalamualaikum. We are from Brunei and we are present about the welding work in occupation, safety and health. So my name is Muhammad Hakim and I will introduce you about the introduction of this project. So let's go to the introduction. And welding work is about the fabrication process that join materials, usually metal or thermoplastic, by using high heat to meet the part together and allowing them to cool the combustion fusion. Also define the welding can exposure to the metal fuel and to the ultraviolet radiation, which is UV. Safety hazard from this operation include burn, eye damage, electric shock, cast and crash toes and fingers. Many different energy source can be used for welding, including a gas flame, chemical, electric arc, electrical, a laser, and electron beam, friction, and ultrasound. And welding can take place in a variety of settings, including the open air, underwater, and even space.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Rashid. So, it's planning for the hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. HIRA. So, HIRA is the strategy for identifying variables that may affect workers and others, such as weighing risk upon planning, implementation, and monitoring of measure to control risk at all time. So, when a hazard appear to constitute serious concern, HIRA action must be planned and carried out. So, this is the table of HIRA from DOSH. So it goes with prescribed work activities consultation, which must have employer representative and worker representative, and then the identify of hazard, risk assessment, prepare risk control action plan, and implement. And then if review is needed, it will be done to identify other hazard. Next, we have hazard identification for welding work in construction. So hazard identification was used to determine action that put employees health and safety at risk. Health hazard, safety hazard, and environmental hazard are three sort of dangers. So in this welding work in construction, we have health hazard and safety hazard. So there are 10 hazard that might occur during welding level in construction, which is classified into health hazard and safety hazard. We have the example of health hazard. There are three health hazard that can be identified in welding work. Number one is exposure to fume and gas, which can cause serious issues such as respiratory infection, cancer, and speech and mobility impairment. Next, we have noise, which can be extremely harmful to the ears, resulting in hearing loss. So noise-induced hearing loss can be caused by repeated or immediate exposure to loud noise. And lastly, we have exposure to UV and IR radiation. So looking at the powerful bloom of UV light and light created while welding can cause arc eye, painful, and sometimes long-lasting ailment. Next, we have the safety hazard. So the main hazard from safety hazard is physical. So physical dangers such as burn, eye injury, wound, and crushes, toes, and fingers are always present in construction work. Next, we have electric shock. Rapid electrical discharge in the human body can result in significant harm or even death. And then we have fire and explosion. Most common cause of fire is flammable object near the working area in construction. And then we have burns. Welding process or work can expose people to severe burn due to a mix of high temperature welding arc, UV radiation, and molten metal. Continuing with the safety hazard, we have confined space. So welding in tight place can result in lack of oxygen, fires, and inhalation of poisonous gases, such as argon and gasoline. Next, we have vibration. So working with welding also can be linked to manual labor that utilize vibrating power equipment. So this vibrating power equipment can result in variety of symptoms, such as hand arm vibration syndrome. And lastly, we have trips or fall. So trips or fall can also happen in welding work. So it is usually caused by hoses or other equipment that is lying on the ground as a consequence of ignorance or reluctance. Next, we have a risk assessment. So in risk analysis, the qualitative technique was used to compute the result, which is an analysis that employ likelihoods and severity. So risk analysis result will be presented in a risk matrix. The risk may be evaluated by multiplying the likelihood and severity. This is the table of likelihood with the rating from the highest to the lowest, and it will be multiplied with the severity table. Also, this from the highest severity to the lowest severity. So the result will be made into the table of severity against likelihood, and then we will get the result. Depend on the risk value. So for high risk value, it requires immediate action to control the hazard, as detailed in the hierarchy of control. Action must be taken for the risk assessment, including debt protection. For medium risk, it requires planned approach to control the hazard and apply temporary measure. And then for low risk, can be considered as acceptable, and further reduction may not be necessary. And lastly, we have risk control. So eradication or deactivation of danger to ensure the safety of all personnel entering the construction area or working with equipment is known as risk control. So risk control is divided into engineering control and administrative control. So there are two of risk control, which is engineering control that consists of elimination and substitution. And then we have administrative control that consists of safe work procedure, supervision and training, and then control hygiene. That's all. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad HAZIM FAUZI, and now I will continue with the highlight table. So the highlight table is contain hazard identification, risk assessment and risk control. So the first work activity is welders exposed to the invisible gas, which can cause have problems like lung disease and cancer. And after that, the risk assessment, the risk value is 20, which is quite high. And the risk control is whether appropriate respirator, working in good ventilated spaces, and avoid from breath and fumes. So the second activity is welders wearing wet clothing, which is can cause electric shock and can cause tissue damage to the welders. And the risk assessment is 6, which is medium, and the risk control is wear dry safety glove and wear protective clothing. And the third one is welders think they can skip taking precaution for a few quick webs. So this can cause body skin and face burn. So the risk assessment is 8, and the risk control is work areas should be away from flammable areas. Clothing should not be oily, and wear protective clothing. And the fourth one is welders are exposed to the light of welding for a long period, so this can cause eyes blur and blind. The risk assessment is 8, and the risk control is wear PPE, personal protective equipment, and safety goggles or face shield to protect the eyes. And the last one is welders exposed to noise, so this can cause hearing loss. And the risk assessment, which is the lowest, which is 3, and the risk control is always wearing hearing protection. So I think that's all for my part. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. My name is Muhammad ZULKAFLI. My matrix number is CF190073. Today I would like to present about the impact of most critical safety and health risks. Okay, first of all, I will explain about the most critical safety hazard. So from our finding, the most critical safety hazard in welding is electric shock. Live electrical circuits are employed to produce a pool of molten metal during an arc welding process. As a result, when welding, you run the chance of receiving an electric shock. Electric shock is the most significant hazard posed by welding. It can cause significant injuries and fatalities either directly or due to a fall from a height following a shock. Okay, next is the most critical health hazard. Okay, what we have found that welding fume is the most critical health hazard. Welding fume is related to both acute and chronic health hazards. The most prevalent health risk is occupationally lung disease, including lung cancer, but welding can also harm the eyes and skin. It is also a considerable concern when welding in local places. Immediately after welding fume exposure, acute symptoms manifest as sickness. According to the HSE, 40 to 50 welders are hospitalized annually due to breathing metal fumes. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad HAMDAN. I will tell to you the result and analysis. Based on this project, 3 categories of risk can be constructed by electrical hazard, fire, explosion hazard, and noise hazard. Electric shock is a risk from electrical hazard, whereas hazard from fire and explosion, those from fumes, gas, heat, burns, and bright light. Okay, number 1 is electric hazard. Existing risk. Number 1 is overdue cables, faulty electrical installation connection. Using SAPA, hand instrument light, and angle grinder or welding torch. The control measure. Number 1 is all wires and cable used for welding are currently fitted with electrical trunking above the user head. Number 2 is the installation of generator set need to be approved by qualified chargeman. Next is fire and explosion. Existing risks. Number 1 is highly flammable gas like propane and oxyacetylene gas are used. Number 2 is welding generator heat and spark. Welding generates heat and spark. Control measure for this hazard is number 1 is all propane and oxyacetylene cylinder have a non-return valve and RV. Number 2 is oxygen and acetylene gas cylinder need to be stored sparingly and keep away from heat source. And lastly is known as existing risks lead to psychology stress and decreased productivity in addition to hearing loss. The quality of day communication can both be impacted by hearing loss. The control measure for this hazard is number one, installing a portable sound dampener may be an option for this facing machine. Provide personal protection equipment (PPE) such as earplugs and so on to all workers. Thank you.
So I will present about the conclusion. As a result, welding activity should be done with caution whenever possible and avoided, if at all possible. However, some incidents are avoidable can be exactly dangerous to the workers concerned. When it comes to protecting entrance from the immediate danger, adequate detection of the hazardous atmosphere when welding is critical. And as gas technology develop, we may be able to protect employees from greater long-term damage from toxins like dangerous smoke. This has proven to be beneficial in decreased welding-related incidents. In welding, the entry permit system is a sort of administrative control. Moreover, welding frequently require the use of the PPE equipment. Before beginning work, the most important and first thing an employer must do is a brief staff about health and safety dangers. On the other side, wearing personal protection equipment, which is PPE, might result in greater heat and decreased movement. This custom should be studied thoroughly. Always utilize PPE as a part of a PPE programming and examine all the protection risks and hazard prior to usage. That's all from our group. Thank you very much.